The simplest derivation rule is called reiteration. This rule simply says that if you have derived a formula phi at some point in your derivation, which will have a tree-like structure, you can repeat this very same formula phi in the next line. It is important to emphasize that this does not mean that you can always repeat the same formula phi down the line. What you see here on the right-hand side is a schema of a derivation in which you have derived phi at some point, you've gone through a number of other steps, and then you write again somewhere down the line phi as an application of the reiteration rule. This is a wrong use of the rule of reiteration, because the rule of reiteration only says that you can rewrite the same formula in the next line, not in several lines further down the line. Another rule that is quite simple but more difficult than the rule for reiteration are the rules for the connective conjunction. And these rules are divided into introduction and elimination rules, and we will see in a second what that means. This rule is the rule for introduction of the conjunction or conjunction introduction. This rule says that if you have derived phi at some point in your derivation, and you have also derived psi at some point in your derivation, then in the next line you can derive phi and psi. This seems kind of obvious. So what these rules does is that if you have independent derivations of two formulas, then you can combine these two derivations by writing the conjunction of these two formulas in the next line. So this is called conjunction introduction. On the right-hand side, you see instead conjunction elimination. Conjunction elimination is the opposite of conjunction introduction. So these two rules say that if you have a derivation of phi and psi, then in the next line you can write one of the conjunct independently. So you can write phi or you can write psi. These are these two versions of the conjunction elimination. So derivation rules are introduced for the different connectives, and there are introduction rules and elimination rules, such as conjunction introduction and conjunction elimination. This structure, such as we have conjunction rules and elimination rules, applies to the connective conjunction, but also all the other connectives, as we will see. One final remark regarding conjunction elimination and introduction is where we write the name of the rule in the derivation. It's important to underscore that we write the name of the rule in this position. So we have the reasoning step that is symbolized by this horizontal bar, and then on the right hand side we write the name of the rule that we have used to go from one step to the next. Next, let's consider rules for the connective implication, the arrow from left to right, and these will again be divided into introduction and elimination rules, just like in the case of the connective conjunction, which you've just seen before. So this is the rule for implication elimination. So this rule says that if you have a derivation of phi somewhere and you have a derivation of phi implies psi, then you can, by eliminating the implication, as you can see, write phi. This you should recognize as a form of modus ponens. And so you see that here we have you have a derivation of phi, and you have a derivation of phi implies psi, and therefore you have you can write in the next line of your derivation psi. This eliminates the implication symbol. This is nothing other than modus ponens. Let's see now a rule for the introduction of the implication. This rule is a little more complex, and so we need to be careful and try to understand it. So what this rule says is that if we have at some point assumed a certain formula phi, then and later on we have managed to derive the formula psi, then we can introduce the implication by writing phi implies psi in the next line of the derivation. Consider how the formula phi is written. So we write it between these square brackets, and we label it with this I, or you can label it however you want. And notice that this I is repeated here when we apply the implication introduction. So you need to keep track that that's the assumption you're considering. Now these dots here simply mean that from assuming phi, you have, by applying some other rules of natural deduction, you have come to the formula psi. And therefore in the next line you can derive the implication phi implies psi. Now once you do that, it's important to understand that the assumption, the starting assumption phi, is being cancelled, and so you can also cross it out because it's no longer an assumption. The assumption has as it were discharged and incorporated as the antecedent of our implication. To gain a better understanding of how we should use these two derivation rules for the connective implication and rules for the connective conjunction, and also the reiteration rule, is important to see some common mistakes. So this is a wrong application of the rule for implication elimination, and it is wrong because phi and phi implies psi are not on the same line. They have to be at the same level. One formula cannot be further back or further up in the tree, and then the formula phi implies psi down in the tree. They have to be in the same line. Here is another wrong application of a rule. So this is a wrong application of the conjunction introduction. And again, the problem is the same. The two formulas, phi and psi, have to be at the same level.